Hi, I'm Emma.
And I'm Helena, and we both work at the MS Trust, a charity for people affected by MS. Just a little disclaimer, this has been recorded over Zoom, so apologies if the sound is iffy at any stage. Please do bear with us.
We'd like to welcome you to our podcast, Multiple Sclerosis Breaking It Down, and to this episode where we'll be talking about relationships and MS. So that's romantic relationships, family connections, and friendships as well, and lots of other different types of relationships. Of course, our relationships with the people around us are really important for our emotional health and also practical support too. And of course, our personal esteem and sense of self can often revolve around the roles that we play in relation to other people in our lives.
And sometimes MS can feel like a barrier to those relationships and making it harder to maintain the ones that matter to us or develop new ones in the future. So today we're going to try to dive into some of these issues. We're going to be joined by Billy from Shift MS, who lives with MS himself, and Flora from our MS Trust Inquiry line. So without further ado, let's get started.
So as relationships are all about the different ways that we interact with other people, we thought we'd take a slightly different approach in this podcast, and we'd invite our subject expert and our other guest along together in this one interview for the episode. So today we're really lucky to be joined by Billy and Flora. You're both newbies to the MS Trust podcast. So do you want to just start off by introducing yourselves, starting with you, Billy?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Billy. I'm the content marketer at shift.ms. I think I've been there like a year and a half now, maybe a little bit more, which has gone fast. I'm 29. I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS well over 3 years ago now, like 3 and a bit years ago. And I take Ocrevus, which I'm thankful that I'm responding to well. So yeah, that's me.
And I'm Flora. I work on the helpline here at MS Trust. So I take a lot of calls from people discussing, what's going on with their relationship or other issues that end up turning it out to be about a relationship problem at the heart of it. So, I'm really excited to talk today with everyone.
Cool. And then obviously we've got our usual regular Helena here. So if you've not heard or seen Helena before, can you just say hi to us and give a little intro, please, Helena?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Helena. I was diagnosed back when I was 29, back in 2007. So yes, that was a while ago. I am Emma's co-host for the podcast. I've worked for the MS Trust since 2007 as well, in the info and engagement team. So I see a lot of questions coming in. I don't answer questions myself, but I sort of more gather questions and send them on to the information and helpline. So over the years, there's been a lot of things about relationships. Myself, I guess in my status, I'm married. Got married in 2009, and I have 2 children that popped along in 2010 and 2013.
So should we just kick off by starting to talk about what's usually the beginning of most people's MS journey, and that's the diagnosis. So as we know, being diagnosed with MS can be quite a challenging time as it is, but an additional challenge is obviously sharing that news with people close to you. For you, Billy and Helena, what did some of those conversations look like?
So I was in a long-term relationship at the time, and I was really well supported. Actually, it was really good, and I think because for me my symptoms had been quite apparent, and it like the conversation that had been, oh, I might have MS. That writing had been on the wall for a while. So when the confirmation actually came, we were kind of half prepared for it anyway. I then had to tell my family. I now look back and it shouldn't be funny, but it is. But like my mum lost it and legit thought I was just dying, and then obviously I wasn't. So it hit her quite hard, and I think what I experienced was that everybody's reaction around me was a lot quicker than my own, and I kind of rushed to manage everybody else's expectations and reassure them before myself. And my coming to terms with it happened months and months later, which was a bit of a shock, because my initial reaction was like, I'll be fine. I'm just going to do everything harder and faster and enjoy everything more and more. And actually precisely what I needed was less. So yeah, yeah, that was kind of my experience.
Now, this was a while ago since it happened, but I feel like quite a lot of similarities there. My husband he was boyfriend back then, had been going with me to a lot of my appointments and things. So he was fairly sort of in on what was going on. And he's a very chilled and relaxed person. Sort of, I tend to be a bit, I don't know, if I'm the balloon in the relationship who's up there, he's like the one who anchors me down and calms me down a bit. So I think we've always had quite good dynamics like that. But for me, the trickiest thing was to tell my mum, because we've always had a little bit of a funny relationship, because my father passed away when I was a teenager. And since then, I've sort of almost been a little bit of a mother to my mum. And it was really hard to break it through her, because then this kind of person in her life that was supposed to be, I don't know, grounded and fine, suddenly wasn't. So like Billy was saying, I had to like really manage her expectation, and she would call me almost every day and say, what's happening now? What's going on now? What's, first she didn't want to think that it was MS to start with, because my granddad, so it was her father-in-law, had MS, and he was in a wheelchair, and so I think she had and then the other person that she'd known with MS had lots of really difficult breathing difficulties and swallowing difficulties, and sadly passed away from it. So she did not have a great sort of first introduction to MS. So I think I had to just sort of say to her, Mum, please, can we just not talk about MS every single time I talk to you? Because most of the time things don't change from day to day. It's like, it's still me. I'll tell you if something's going on. It's better for me to sort of say, well, today I'm actually feeling a bit rubbish, or today the vertigo is bad, rather than the first thing that happens is me going, okay, no, this is fine. This is fine. This is, it just became a bit much that. So I feel like with Billy, very similar, that for me, the first 6 months or so was almost like not thinking about how I was managing it all, but just how everybody else was managing my MS. I had some friends that were fantastic, some friends that didn't want to talk about it at all, and some friends that would almost like come with all this, I've read this article, should you be a vegan? Should you be this? Should you be that? And it was like, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't even met an MS nurse, and you just kind of wanted to be like, it's hard to say no when people want to be helpful.
From your perspective, Flora, are there any things, like specific things, that people with MS should consider when they're talking to others about their diagnosis?
Something that is really useful to think about is how to set boundaries. Where when you're coming to this conversation and saying, I have this condition, maybe thinking about how you want to interact about it, to what level you want to go into it, what kind of expectations you'll have of people. I think what Helena was saying about her mum checking in each time, and then she kind of changed it up. So that can be a really useful thing to think about, what you need from people and what you want from them at this moment. And to also think about telling someone about your diagnosis isn't just a sort of a one-time thing where you tell them and then they get it and then everyone gets on with life. It's something that kind of is negotiated over time, and kind of you see it in different relationships in different ways, fitting in or not fitting in. And so thinking about, this one conversation is just one conversation. It's not the whole thing. So don't worry too much about what happens in that conversation. And I think finally, the other thing that might be useful is having a kind of potted explanation of what MS is, because so many people are like, I've heard of it. And then they don't really know, they're like, oh, is that different from ME? Things like that. There's a lot of conditions where it's a notable condition that people have heard of, but they don't really understand it, and it's not the most straightforward to explain. So one thing that can be helpful is just kind of knowing a way to say it and how it looks for you. I think that's something that came up with both of you, that MS symptoms are different for everyone, so maybe highlighting what is actually going on and focusing on that can help.
I think that's really true. My mum kept on comparing me to my granddad all the time. And when I was saying, the worst thing for me is fatigue, and she was like, but he wasn't tired. And it was almost like I was making it up. And it was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, you know, it's
like your granddad's got the true version of MS
yeah,
and you've just got some rip-off version.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good point, that everyone will have their own understanding of it, and that's one of the reasons why I say it's sort of a negotiation, because you've got to give them time to get used to how MS looks for you in particular, because people like to kind of get an idea in their head to go with it sometimes.
So should we talk a little bit about romantic relationships and dating now? Obviously, it's such a huge topic because we're sold this idea of love throughout our lives. You know, loads of films, books, music, TV series really focus on it. And, you know, as humans, I think we can be a little bit obsessed with the idea of finding love. I know personally, I read a book recently and it talked about how it's such a huge part of our life, but we're not really taught how to approach those relationships. And you know, like we have lessons on so many different things at school, but not on that sort of aspect of life. So what is dating with MS actually like? And what are some of the lessons that you've learned from seeking sort of romantic relationships as someone with MS?
It's definitely changed. So following on from the last point, I think there needs to be a period, and well, there is a period where your literacy about MS isn't that great either. You've inherited this thing that you don't want, and also you don't know much about. And I always explain it like, when I got diagnosed, I got handed a bunch of leaflets, and what I actually needed was someone to talk to. And after that period of like finding a couple of people with MS that were kind of my age, similar sense of humor, that kind of brought down the fear enough for me to be like, okay, when I'm dating, I'm gonna have to tell someone that I've got MS. And I think the way you approach it is so critical, because and there's no right or wrong answer, but I think you see people that all of a sudden it becomes their entire identity. And that's awesome. If that works for you, that's ace. And so you get, you know, your hashtag MS warrior and that kind of stuff. For me, I found it really beneficial to kind of be the polar opposite, because beforehand, you know, I'm a musician, I'm a brother, I'm a boyfriend, I love hiking. So how would I say it? How would I tell someone I had MS if I was a musician that just occasionally struggled with a relapse every now and again, rather than being like, I have MS and it's my whole life? Those are two very different conversations that you'd have. And I think the other person is going to react to how you frame it. So I think being clear on how you broach the topic and the energy with which you deliver it, I think that's quite critical. I myself have never had an instance where I've told somebody and then I've been ghosted. That's never happened. And I think, again, like, you know, maybe everybody has a slight fear of rejection, don't they? And I think MS is probably only going to amplify that to a degree. So I think, you know, just the classic strategies for kind of getting over that, and not vacating your own wants and needs to be what you think someone else wants, and getting really clear on what you want and who you are. You just piggyback off those things with the MS as well, I guess. Does that make sense? Did I just ramble? I'm probably rambling now.
No,
I think that makes
That was really good.
I mean, I was already in a relationship when I was diagnosed, and I'd been with my boyfriend at the time for a few years. So I didn't really have the sort of the having to break or, you know, decide what to talk about it or what have you. But I feel, again, like what Billy was saying about not making it be your whole identity, it can be very overwhelming and it can become a big thing of you, like part of you. And that can be sort of good and bad in some ways. But I feel like if you think about it in the other person's shoes, and you sort of, you go out with someone, we're on a date, and the first thing that they want to talk about is their medical condition, and that is like the most important thing, would you react to like, oh, well, that's really interesting, or would you kind of think, that's strange if that is just the one thing that that's sort of that they want to talk about? But I still feel like, you know, if MS is impacting you a lot, and there is, then you might want to explain that is what it is, because, you know, you see people that think, oh, they think I'm drunk all the time, or, you know, so there is an explanation about it. And, you know, having worked for the MS Trust for quite a few years, you have seen some horrible stories where people have been, ghosted or rejected, left after diagnosis and things like that. And again, like, yes, rejection is horrible, but then you almost have to see, well, do you think that this person would have been good to stick it out with in the long run anyway? Because they probably could have escaped it off with any kind of hardship popping up. I was watching a webinar from MS Society Ireland, I think it was, about relationships and MS, and they were saying, it's kind of like when you go and try on clothes, or you try on things that fit or don't fit, and then you discard the stuff that doesn't fit. You don't like put it on and go, well, I make it fit because I have to wear this thing. And that's sort of in the same way as if this person is behaving really badly, then they're not the right fit for you. And as hard as it might be to deal with the rejection, you're better off in the long run.
We actually had a comment from someone before this podcast who sort of said that they were dumped after 6.5 years by their partner because they didn't believe them when they were saying like, oh, I can't do certain things because of my MS and we just have to be a bit adaptable. But actually, like, the positive out of it was that they realized, they didn't need that person in their life, and they started to sort of evaluate who was worth their time and who wasn't, and evidently this person wasn't, because relationships are a two-way thing. I think sometimes you need to remember that you're not just trying to seek someone's approval, they've also got to earn that from you as well.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is sort of finding the happiness in yourself first, and because since you're little, you get crammed in with this, like, this true romance, and this needs to be like this, and fluffy clouds and blah 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 blah. And it's, like you said, we haven't had any training, we don't know what it is, apart from in the book it sort of ends on a happy note, but you don't know what happens afterwards with dirty dishes and children's nappies and screaming arguments about who is going to go to the school, blah blah. And I feel like it's never that clear, it's not constant 100% love, and some people need to understand that that's not happily ever after. It doesn't really ever exist in any ways. There's certainly lots of happiness, but there's all ups and downs, like everything in life, not just relationships. So I feel like we don't need to think that we need to find someone else to truly become happy. I don't think, personally.
I think one of the questions you got in from the Shift MS community, Billy, was about like how early you disclose your MS when you're dating.
Yeah. So again, it's going to be a really sort of individual answer for everybody, isn't it? I err towards more early, and I think it's interesting. Like, only once, like, when you tell someone brand new, if you introduce that idea early, you kind of have control about how you kind of frame it. Whereas if you're in a relationship like the person we discussed for 6.5 years, and then it happens, that person's got the past you to refer to, and potentially the things you might not be able to do anymore, or the fear of what you might not be able to do. And so I myself haven't really been in that position. I can only talk to the kind of telling someone new. And again, I think it's coming back to how you tell them. And I think probably sooner rather than later, I would err on like maybe not the first date, but once you can sense like you're compatible and it might be going somewhere. I've had a few instances of doing that. It is nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it's coming back to what you guys said about, if this person isn't up for that, then it's a good filter. They weren't for me because I can't change it.
Yeah.
And I'm determined to have a good and happy life and enjoy my life regardless. So I think coming at it like, I'm inviting you on this journey, would you like to attend, rather than I need you to be on this journey with me. It's a bit of a key distinction, I think.
I think what Helena was saying about also, if someone told you after a few dates that they had MS, would you be like, oh well, I mean, I know we're really compatible and we're having a really good time, but I'm just gonna be like, well, no, not now. If there is that compatibility, then it would be strange for someone to be that kind of shallow in approaching a condition that they may not even really fully understand. So I think having MS is not necessarily, it doesn't change who you are. So if that person is attracted to who you are, then that should be their main thing in their mind. And I think for the most part, people do approach things that way. And I don't think anyone's expecting anyone else to be perfect. And if they are, then I'm not sure. Well, personally, I wouldn't want to be dating them because like Helena said as well, there's going to be ups and downs regardless. I mean, it depends what you're looking for in a relationship, but is it important to remember that people don't tend to just dismiss people outright about things like that, and mostly people try to be open-minded. It doesn't mean they'll always get it in the end, but I think it is best to kind of give people a chance, because otherwise it'll start to feel like you're hiding something, and that has its own problems.
So what if things are going really well in your relationship then? We got a comment from someone who said they want to start planning some activities and some surprise sort of date things for their partner, but they do struggle because of like relapses, and sometimes they have flare-ups of different symptoms, and it means that they sometimes have to like cancel different plans last minute. Do you have any tips on that, Flora?
I mean, I would say that, what helps is to think about what could be something you could do even when you weren't at 100%. That doesn't sound like a very romantic way to approach things, but like going to a park, sitting by a lake and feeding ducks is still romantic, and potentially, if it's near enough to your house, you won't have to walk too far. So there's things like that, thinking about dates that are accessible and that allow for kind of times when you can break, when you can sit down. I know you said you like hiking, Billy, but maybe going on a hike that's not too long, or I think it's just kind of like managing MS itself. It's about working out what you can generally do, and trying to kind of see how that can translate. It shouldn't be a barrier, but it might mean that you might slightly need to rethink how you approach things and allow for that time to kind of rest a bit in between, or things like that.
I think sometimes when people, again, there comes to that idea of what you think you should be doing. You watched TV and you think, oh, I need to go on a date in a hot air balloon, and I need to do this, and they will only love me if I'm showing up on a horse and sings by their balcony. Well, I don't know. It's
like you've got a seat in the hot air balloon, though, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, hot air balloon might be quite good, but it's just like, it doesn't have to be like a huge big thing, does it? In order to be romantic, it can still, just like going on a picnic somewhere could be just as lovely and nice, or just doing something that for sure that you enjoy doing. So it could be a physical activity, could be going to the movies, or going for dinner at your special restaurant. I don't know, just to try it out, to see how it goes. Because I think also if you're a bit nervous, then that can kind of, and you think, oh my gosh, maybe I'll have a relapse, I'll have this, I'll have that, then all that sort of nerves might kind of spoil the date anyway. So it's better for you to just be relaxed and happy, and then take it from there, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's all about what's intimate, for you and your partner, what creates that sense of bonding and being close. So it's not, for most of us, that isn't actually the activity. I mean, the activity can be really good and we can really enjoy it, but really it's about that time we get to spend with each other together. So that can be done in any context, really.
Yeah, I mean, when I was first started to go out with my husband, was very into music back in the days of like CD shops and things. He would drag me along to browse all these like weird basement CD stores, and had it been me now, I would have been like, oh, it's too boring. But back in those days, it was like, because I was so in love and it was all lovely, then I followed him around in those shops. I wasn't always, thinking it was the most fun thing, but I was there with him, so it was all good. So I think, it's whatever you enjoy doing, and then make them be a part of it.
I think it's a conversation as well, isn't it, about what things, like, what do you find fun? So I can't remember, I think they're called maybe love languages, and it's this kind of thing of like, for my birthday, for example, you might buy me loads of stuff like a shirt and a watch and all this. I don't care about that. I'd rather know that in 2 months' time we've got a ticket for like a boat cruise or something boring like that. I like that kind of stuff. I like going somewhere, like having a day to look forward to. That's my kind of thing. And I guess it's worth just figuring out, like, okay, I could plan out this lavish date, but would you just prefer to like stay in and read together? And some people just enjoy the companionship. And, you know, I think having that conversation, then if you are making a plan, you know, planning a date, maybe have like, and this is like my proper dad mode of like hiking, what if the weather changes, having a plan B and a plan C, and maybe having like almost like different shades of the date. So like the darkest shade might be like full on, I don't know, a meal on a cruise somewhere, you know, really lavish, all the way down to like, I'm going to set up a picnic table in the back garden, and you know, that way you don't have to travel very far, and it's kind of like kind of achieving the same thing, and it's still the same quality time, but it's like different degrees, I guess. Way more planning, might be a bit intense for like the second date, but it's that sentiment. So yeah,
halfway up a mountain and realize you're not quite clicking and not getting on.
Yeah.
So moving on, not every connection we form is always going to be a romantic one. So you can obviously have other connections like family connections, friendships, people you work with. So when it comes to meeting new people, how and when do you sort of tell them about your MS? And do you have different approaches in terms of like whether they're a work colleague or a friend outside of work or something?
I'm an open book when it comes to this kind of thing. So I have the benefit of working for an MS charity, so that helps. But we have had some new starters recently, and they don't have MS. And I made it like very clear that like, while you're getting to know this new landscape and the vocabulary of it, please come to me. And for me, there are no stupid questions. And I've like, you know, been speaking to friends' parents about it. And it's not that they're trying to be offensive. I do have a slight issue with things you see online, like offensive things to hear with MS. Like if someone's being genuinely offensive, then, you know, get lost. But I think there's a lot of middle ground where people just either have a very outdated vocabulary with it or just don't have one. And I think to kind of vilify those people and shut them down isn't the correct approach, I would argue. So I'm always kind of happy to take that on the chin and be like, oh, well, the thing is, and then sometimes I've waited until the very end of having this discussion and then dropping, well, I've got MS. And it's like, you know, the whole cliche, oh, but you look really well and blah, 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 blah. It's like, you know, a cliche at this point, isn't it? But I would much rather have the conversation with people. And again, fairly early. You could argue that doing that is another kind of responsibility to add to the list of what is already like, you know, dealing with symptoms and chasing nurses and neurologists. And so that won't be for everyone. And one day that might not be for me. That's just where I'm at the moment.
I feel in some ways because of social media where you can, if you know, I put about things about having MS on there, not like all the time, but you know, if like I'm raising money for doing this run, blah blah blah, because I have MS, you know, so most people that will sort of see me on social media would know that I have MS. Again, like Billy, I work for an MS organization, so there is already a connection there. But you know, when you do come across new people, do I always tell them? If I think I'm going to sort of meet them again or see them again, then it seems like a thing that I should say, then I do say it. If it's somebody I'm forming a friendship with, I would definitely tell them. And, you know, when there's people who have started at work, especially during the pandemic, when it's not always so clear, you know, you just the head on the on a screen sometimes. I've sort of said, yeah, you know, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I know not everybody with MS wants to talk about it, but I feel like there's the best way to do is just to ask questions, and like Billy said, there's no stupid questions really. I have come across a few people that sort of, oh, I know about that because so-and-so had it and they had to do this and they had to do that, and do you have to do this, and can almost be a bit like aggressive in the way that they're talking to you. And that's fine, I guess, you know, yeah, sometimes I'll take the conversation, sometimes I don't. But yeah, I try to be open about it, but not make it, maybe it's not like, hello, my name is Helena and I have MS. It's not maybe
Totally.
that approach, but yeah.
And Flora, is there sort of a right time to tell people about your MS?
I think, based on what we've talked about today, it really depends on the person, and it depends on the person they're telling as well, and that particular relationship. I think when it comes to having been recently diagnosed, it's a bit of a different process than maybe a year in, a few years in, where that is more kind of merged with your identity, and maybe it's more natural to bring it up. Whereas if you've just recently been diagnosed, then it might be more of a like, I need a bit of time to think about this, think about how this is for me. Whereas other people, to normalize things, they need to express it right away and get that support from others. So I don't think there's a right time. I think the important thing is really knowing what you need and what you expect from people, and being aware of those people who are just probably not going to do that for you. The ones that they can understand you have MS, but that's going to be about it, and that's okay. And and sort of just getting comfortable with that. And also, I think the other thing is, when you're thinking about who to tell, don't try and make too many assumptions about how they'll react, because people come up with all kinds of things when you tell them things. A lot of people will talk about themselves and their own experiences with, that one time I had a numb foot or something. And like you said before, Helena, like being like, oh, is bee venom good for this then, and things. And yeah, it's about working out, what that person has the capacity to do, and kind of trying to be as accepting as you can, but not taking it to heart when they really don't get it.
We find that a lot with fatigue, don't we? Like, obviously people message us at the trust about, like, their friends will say like, oh yeah, I was tired the other day, had a late night. It's like, no, it's not quite the same, is it?
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues we have in relationships themselves that comes up the most, is really getting someone to engage with the idea of MS fatigue in particular. And I mean, you see it in other disorders that primarily have fatigue as the central symptom. That I think people can't really get, that you can't just get up and get on with things, and you're not being lazy, even though they can be really nice people. And it can be just really important to just keep trying to explain, if you need to, what it feels like for you and what it looks like, because I think people find it hard to get in their heads sometimes.
I think in some ways things like fatigue or any sort of MS symptoms, I guess, kind of makes you you can sort of reevaluate some friendships. I think that webinar I was watching, they were saying that apparently, I did not know this, but they said that when you're around 23, 26, you start to reevaluate your friendship group and sort of see which ones you are. Because often when we have friends, when we're kids, we got friends by proximity because they live close to us, and doesn't necessarily mean we're getting on with them. And then again, sort of in your 40s and 50s, and you look at things. And I feel like I have, for me to kind of sort my fatigue out, I do like exercise in the morning, and I tend to get up very early, but then I am quite rubbish late at night. So I struggle, wanting to go out and do stuff socially very late at night. And I'm quite rubbish with drinking alcohol, because I just feel really bad the day after, even though if I don't get drunk, I just don't. So some people don't quite get that, and they feel like, well, can we still invite her out for a drink? Or if they sit, and if I'm at the pub, they'd be like, come on, you have a drink, you feel better. And it's like, well, no, I'm happy. I don't have a problem with you drinking. Go for it. I just want to sit here and have a nice time, and then I'll go when I need to go. And I feel like my really good friends, they totally get that, because they know I'm not being rude. I've just kind of stated that this is it. I'm having a lovely time, but I'll get to the point where it's going to stop being lovely, and therefore I need to go away. And the people who can take that, they can take that. The people who can't, then again, I can still see them in other situations, but probably not in a social evening situation kind of thing. And I feel like relationships, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
I was just going to say, it's, you know, those friends that can understand that you staying out a couple of hours late because they want you to hang out could mean a couple of days kind of having to rest most of the day. You know, that's the kind of friend you need to keep around.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the emotional impact? Because, you know, like, I think losing friends or, you know, drifting apart from different friends can actually have it can be quite like an emotionally distressing time. And I think we don't really talk about that so much. So how do you deal with the emotional impact of that and sort of make sure that you then don't face things like loneliness?
I think there definitely is such a thing as breaking up with friends. I certainly remember having that when I was at university, when it would almost feel as sort of, you didn't necessarily have a big falling out about anything, but you just sort of drifted apart. And then when you tried to reach out again, it was like being stonewalled, that it was like, no. And that could be as heartbreaking as, you know, a romantic relationship. But then again, it's kind of like, if it's not working out, then it's not working out. And then it's, some friendships might be worth trying to revisit and see if you can mend it, or you can talk about things. I think, again, it's very much like talk about what your feelings are, rather than kind of go, you did this and you did that and you made me feel rubbish, because then how is that person going to react to you, and sort of deal with it. But if you kind of come to them and say, I know I can't go out as much as I did before, I still really would like to see you, and is there any way that we can still keep in touch? Maybe, you know, go for a walk or go for a coffee during the daytime, go to the movies, come around, sit in my house and watch a TV, you know, doing things like that, rather than if you think it's worth fighting for it. But then, like I said, really kind of reevaluate whether it's not, because you don't need to have 1,000 friends, you just for the sake of having lots of friends.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's key. And if your friendships are so inflexible that they kind of break at something like this, then it's sort of like, it is evaluating, like resetting the boundaries of those if you can, because we as people, like we're dynamic our whole lives, and so your relationships should be too. They should be able to update and change and you know, kind of float around the things that happen to us, hopefully. Wasn't so much friendships, but like the lifestyle. I had to kiss goodbye to a whole lifestyle. When I was diagnosed, I was working in the music industry in London, and the music industry was kind of like, you do a very hectic day's work, and then it's expected that you will be going out networking and drinking and going to gigs and stuff, as, you know, representing the company that you're working for. I just couldn't do that anymore. I also began to look around and kind of be like, what's all this for anyway? A lot of kind of surface level conversations, which I hate small talks so much. So actually in that way, it was a massive adjustment, but it benefited me because I feel like I'm living a much more authentic life now. Fortunately, my friends have kind of, like, my sort of school and college friends, I feel like they're going to be locked in forever, and they've been great. They kind of ask how I am every now and again, but I remember when I was kind of first diagnosed, I was desperate, like, I don't want anything to change, I don't want anything to change. They just started posting in our group chat like really offensive memes, and I loved it. I was like, it was all at my expense as well, so I was just like, yeah, great, that's exactly what I want. I want my friends to be able to laugh at me and with me. That's what I needed. Whereas everyone else around me, like family, were like suddenly acting like the world was like scary and I needed to be bubble wrapped, and which is exactly what you want as, you know, a guy in the prime of his life. So it was really good. My friends were really supportive, but the friends I had kind of more through music, they've kind of fallen quiet. I'm not angry about it. I don't really feel anything about it. It's just, that's just the course my life took, and it's all right. So yeah. And
I think, you know, as we grow and get older, you kind of get new interests. I started running very late when I was about 38, and I started going to parkrun, and suddenly you making a lot of new friends that have sort of the same interests and things as you, and it sort of changes all the way through life. You don't have to stick with the same group of people and have the same interest your whole life. It sort of can just change, and because you're changing.
And in terms of the loneliness angle, do we have any tips on helping that one? Obviously, Flora, you might have some, but I think, Billy, you've got the Shift MS Buddy service. Does that sort of help with those things?
Yeah, definitely. So even I think there's a distinction between loneliness and isolation. I think you can kind of feel isolated and still have loads of people around you. So for example, if you're having trouble getting your family to understand, and we see this a lot with the Buddy Network. So again, it was that kind of thing of, you know, I needed someone to talk to when I was newly diagnosed, but I was not lonely at all. Unfortunately, I didn't know about the Buddy Network until I started working at Shift. But it's essentially a one-to-one peer support service. So we match you up with someone that's got a bit more lived experience with MS than you, that you can just ask questions to, rant to if you want. And I really regret not having that when I was newly diagnosed, because I'm poor at reading leaflets. I'm just poor at reading at the best of times, but I love to talk and I love to chat, and I think I really would have benefited. So I think that's an interesting distinction. You can have a lot of quote unquote support, but maybe not a lot of understanding. And that's where I think reaching out to someone kind of in the same shoes, or at least similar shoes to you, so you kind of feel seen and heard and understood, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. I sort of had, when I was first diagnosed, through a message board, I think it was someone I met who worked in London who had MS for 10 years, who almost became like a bit of a mentor for me, and it was so helpful, just because I overconsume information instead. I'm like, give me everything, but then the lived experience is quite different to what you can see on paper. So I feel it's good to get a match, but you do need to sort of find someone who clicks with you, I think, because if you go and talk to someone who is, I don't know, it doesn't always, like you say, MS is so varied, and the person who was my mentor, she had very different symptoms and problems than I did, but she just had a very overarching understanding of MS. Because I feel like if you're going to be talking to someone who's much more disabled than you might get scared in the beginning. Because I was advised, I don't know about you, Billy, but I was actually advised not to go to groups when I was diagnosed, because they said, oh, that would scare you to see people who sit in wheelchairs. And I feel like now that's such an offensive thing to say. But this was like 15 years back. Because I feel like you can definitely gain experience from meeting all sorts of people with MS. And actually, the more varied, the better. But when you have somebody who is like your buddy or mentor, you need someone that you actually really click with.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's key. Very similar to you. One of the first things I did was jumped on a very well-known forum, and I think just by chance the first post I navigated to was like a really negative, scary one, and it just freaked me out. I was like, oh no, is this the club I'm now part of? I hate this. So yeah, I think finding someone that's a bit more sort of, I guess, tailored to you and your outlook on life is helpful.
And I mean, that goes sort of if you've had MS for a while as well. And if you want an MS buddy, you might not want to be looking in the pool of everybody who's just been newly diagnosed, who's new to it either. You might want to find other people who's lived with it for a while.
I think it's important to be discerning as well, because we see this a lot on our platform. We've been having conversations. When you're newly diagnosed, is it wise for you to be kind of parachuted in with everybody else that's kind of, like that scene from the Titanic where literally everybody's panicking? It's kind of like, is that helpful? Perhaps it's not. But at the same time, I guess it's worth knowing what you need to be reassured. So like some people, you have that friend where you just get together and you rant and it's negative, but you kind of like it. You just put in the world to rights. Some people need that. Other people need to be like, no, I need like the positive support. I need affirmation, and that's legitimate too. So I think it's really worth figuring out, okay, who would I respond well to? Because if you're kind of like, okay, I just need to have a bit of a rant and a swear, being then paired with someone that's like really upbeat and let's go all the time, probably going to annoy you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's worth figuring out what you want as well.
Just because you have MS doesn't mean that you would get along, because we're also
So
very,
true.
very different, and we were all different people before we had MS, and that before MS we might not have gotten along. so I think that's
Exactly, yeah.
Flora, if someone were to call the helpline and say that they felt a little bit isolated or were looking for some of these support groups, what sort of advice would you offer?
I mean, I think it's important, like you've both been saying, to think about who you are as a person and what makes you feel, less isolated and more connected. Um, for some people that will be attending a support group, going online, going to a forum. But for other people, it's maybe identifying people in their network who don't necessarily have MS, but who they can rely on to not judge them and listen to them and really get where they're coming from and give them that type of support. Um, also, some people just aren't in those have those friendships. And sometimes it would even be if you are lacking in anyone to talk to, thinking about actually getting some professional support to help you to kind of navigate your own kind of journey and to find out what your needs are in your relationships. So I think there's such a huge range of support online. Obviously, Shift MS, and then Helena runs our Facebook group, and that there's many other places. But it is kind of being mindful that the internet is the internet still wherever you go, and so there'll be kind of extremes of things. It's also perhaps meeting people if you're having an infusion. Sometimes people meet people there, but also that there might be other people who are living with conditions that aren't the same, but they also have similar limitations that are sometimes placed on you, or require similar negotiations in your friendships, and they can be people to reach out to. So it's really just kind of, if someone was to ring, it would be really exploring their social network that they have now, what they're not getting, what they need. I think a big thing is in your kind of your relationships with your romantic partner, that it can be particularly challenging if they're not getting what your MS means. And I think that's a really important thing to try and figure out, how to find other people that can understand it if your partner can't.
I was, even though I was sort of advised not to go to meetings and groups and things like that, has in my professional job, I've been along to a few of these type of groups and talked about what the MS Trust does and things, and I've seen some really lovely groups of people where they're all kind of all ages. You get older people, you get people who are newly diagnosed, people are sitting in wheelchairs, and they have a lovely time, and it's not at all like some people made it sound like. So I feel like, even though I wasn't advised to do it I wouldn't have a problem at all going along to some of these meetings as well. But it is like you say, you just have to find what's right for you and what you would do. And I would say as well, if you just really, loneliness is more of a thing rather than maybe people understanding MS, maybe try and volunteering and doing something like, go and volunteer at parkrun. You don't have to run, you could stand and do some timekeeping or cheering on, and just kind of get to know new people and people that are close to you in your where you live, and just find some other type of clubs like that, or places.
Yeah I think that's a really important point, that like, just because you have MS doesn't mean your only interest is now MS. And I think a lot of people, because there's so much going on, they do lose connections with hobbies they like music, or doing art, things like that. And that can actually be a great kind of therapeutic resource that also allows you to connect with others in a kind of boundaried way. I think volunteering is a really, I think, an underestimated source, because obviously a lot of people get a lot of fulfillment from helping people, and volunteering doesn't have to be a huge commitment. It can be a couple of hours in a week, and maybe if you're not able to work at the moment, but you can manage to do a couple of hours of volunteering, that still gives you that kind of connection that you might be missing from being part of a workplace.
Yeah, that's definitely the same with our volunteers as well. When we kind of do focus groups, I think we do them like every quarter, and that's what we hear back all the time. Like, it's not only just like doing the role, but the things our volunteers get back from the role, and that's a big one. Like, I feel way more like kind of in command of my MS just as a result of being around other volunteers as well. So it's kind of a two-way street, I think. It's a really good point.
Yeah, I think sometimes because like having a chronic illness can take you out of some of the normal arenas of society, that can then lead to sort of a slight loss of identity. And I think that's where finding other places where you can continue to be yourself and be more than a person who's unwell, in this context, can really kind of make you feel good about yourself, and be more empowered.
So on to the next sort of topic, looking potentially a few years in advance, a bit further on with your MS, say that your condition evolved a little bit and you needed to have some more conversations with friends and family, maybe ask for a little bit more support or some care at home. How would you have those conversations? I don't know if it's something that you, Helena, and Billy have ever thought about, or you've heard experiences of other people that have maybe had those discussions.
Well, I've sort of had a bit of it, having to talk to my children about it, because I mean, obviously they've grown up with me, so around them, so they've always seen that I can get a little bit, I don't know, tired and wonky and unbalanced at times. But if it's sort of been affecting me more than normal, so like for instance, we had the heat wave and I went really bad on that super hot day. I was all fizzy everywhere and it was painful. And I did have to explain that, I can't cook, I can't do this at the moment because it's not great. And I think if you feel like you have to do everything, because I think this is the thing, often if you have a special role in your relationship, that could be in your in your partnership or with friends, you're that one person, you're the reliable person, you're the person who gets things done, or you're the funny guy or whatever. If you're not having that day, you're not going to be able to fulfill that personality. And if your friends and families truly love you, they should be accepting of that. So I think it's really important that instead of trying to push on and then get irate and angry because you can't do things, and then instead of actually saying, look, I just need a bit of help, you kind of I can't quite often do that. I just grumble on with things and then I get angry with my kids and I grunt at them if they do something wrong, instead of actually just saying, look, mum is really tired at the moment and I just can't do this, so just let me sit down for a little bit. And that's generally fine, because I feel like often we expect that kind of stiff upper lip, mustn't grumble kind of thing, and that's just stupid. I think.
Yeah, there's so much of that I can kind of relate with. Less so the kids stuff because I don't have them. But as a renounced fixer, pleaser, problem solver, doing everything for everyone and kind of finding enjoyment in that is something I've had to sort of challenge a lot and kind of readdress. And I think one of the interesting distinctions was that the more you do for people, the less they get to practice being self-reliant, which kind of changed the game for me. I also have had real trouble with saying no. And on those, it's funny, you said kind of, the funny guy, like I will laugh my way out of any uncomfortable situation. But I get days where I just don't feel funny sometimes, and that's okay. And that's when, because of the way I kind of have set my character up for so long, you think, oh, what's wrong? What's up with you? And it's kind of like just being like, I'm just having a bad day today and I need you to be all right with it. It's not, why does it have to be black and white? Like I'm 100% this day and 0% this day. I'm still me. I just might not be as smiley today. In terms of asking my family for sort of help and stuff, I haven't had to do that so much, but anecdotally, I did break my leg at the start of the year and I had to ask my dad for help, like getting food shopping and stuff like that. And I noticed that I didn't like it. I do not like asking for help. So I think that is going to be a challenge for me in the future. And it's something I am going to have to navigate. So yeah, that should be interesting. Yeah.
But I think it's such a part of our identity, like who you are. And if you are, I think I'm a bit of the fixer as well. I like to fix other people instead of fixing myself.
Nice.
So you don't have to deal with what's going on in there. But when you can't, you just have to learn to say no. And I feel like, asking for help is really, really, really difficult. but it's in the long run, you just have to sort of admit to that, you're not Superman, you're not Superwoman, you can't do absolutely everything. Nobody can. And I think you made a very, very, very important point there about if you do everything for everyone and then they don't become self-sufficient, especially if you're a parent and you do everything for your kids, they're not really, they might thank you for it now because they're just sitting there and having a lovely time, playing their games and stuff. But actually, when they leave the house, they don't have these important life skills that you need. So actually getting the kids to help you with stuff if you are struggling is if you feel bad about asking, just think about that you're teaching them some useful life skills that they will be thankful for when they fly the nest.
Definitely. And perhaps not kids, but I think most adults, like when you've had a friend or a relative ask you for help, have you ever been like, oh, this is rubbish? Like, no, it's like, it feels nice to help people and demonstrate that you care for them. So I think, like, I would imagine that could maybe then go too far though, because what if then I imagine that there is a friction point. So when a partner becomes a carer, for example, navigating that is something we hear a lot about on Shift.ms, and kind of there being some very legitimate frustrations and frictions, and you do see a lot of that. That's not a point I'm at in my journey, so I don't think I can really speak to it.
Yeah, I think you got a couple of questions in about that, didn't you, from the Shift MS community about if your partner becomes your carer, how to keep that intimacy up in your relationship. Do we have any tips for that one, Flora?
Yeah, I think that, this is definitely something that comes up a lot on the helpline as well. And I think a real problem is, like, we talk about asking for help. Oh, it's okay to ask for help. We've got to ask for help. But a lot of the time we don't know what we need or what we want as help. There can be some practical things, but a lot of the tensions kind of arise when you're asking, you really want that help, but actually between the partner and yourself, you haven't managed to communicate what kind of help you need, what would really be helpful. Is it actually that they do this task for you, or is it actually that they understand how stressful doing this task is for you, and really having conversations about what's going on for you, and feeling like they understand that, and then kind of working out how they can help you is really important, rather than either one of you assuming the other should be able to guess. Or not only that they should be able to guess, but that
you hear all the time, it's like one of those kind of old, I don't know, memes and cartoons and whatnot about like people not being mind readers and not understanding, why does he not get me? And then it's like, well, did you actually say what you wanted? And it's like, no, but you should understand, we've been together for so long. It's like, no, because people don't, quite often you have to, like, because everybody's walking around and just thinking about their own things and their problems and work and things like that. They're not just thinking, oh, he or she's struggling a little bit, then maybe I should, they're kind of thinking, oh, can I get ready this? And I need to fill this report and I need to do that. So sometimes you actually have to do, look, today I'm actually having a bit of rubbish day. Could we get a takeaway instead? That it can be as simple as that. But then also it can be like, if something changes, like to your health, or you're starting to have lots of pains or whatever, it's like, well, actually, I'm worried. This is worrying me at the moment. I'm actually feeling a bit scared about, I'm having a relapse. This is scary for me. I need someone to talk to. I don't want to make you feel scared, but I just need to vent a little bit, and I think instead of just getting annoyed, because I feel like you kind of accuse other people then, instead of, if the first thing that comes up is like, why don't you understand me? And it's like, well, what do I need to understand? It's like, but my MS. And it's like, but I'm not in your brain. I don't understand that. So I feel like quite often we just have to not over explain, but like be really clear before we get annoyed. Just like kind of go a step back and kind of think, does he or she or they actually know what's the problem in the first place?
Yeah, I think something that comes up is that, like, the amount of like maybe potentially like negative thoughts one might have in the day in their head about, oh, I'm worried about this symptom, I'm worried about this, this situation and these things that are worrying us. And we often get used to kind of holding those things into a certain degree, and then it comes out a bit wrong. Whereas if you find a way to communicate to your partner the things that are sort of on your mind in that way, even the little things like, I just had this stupid conversation with this person and I feel really frustrated. Having that dialogue can really help them to kind of understand where you're at, rather than hoping that they guess.
Yeah.
I think another thing is that as a carer, maybe not assuming or trying to kind of fix that person, and really checking in that what they want help with, because you don't want to be taken care of, like, and feel like you're losing some of your own power, because someone who's your partner and your carer thinks that that's the right way to do it. So it's having that dialogue in both directions.
Yeah. If you're looking after someone with MS as well, to make sure that you look after yourself as well, and that
Yeah.
you have someone to talk to and someone to vent to and things. Because we often hear people sort of say, yes, I have MS, but we all live with MS in the family, because they're also affected by it. And when it becomes a big thing, if it is progressive, then it will impact the carer a lot as well. And I think it's important to not just become that person that just somebody else is talking to, but actually you have someone to talk to as well.
Well, I was just thinking, that's a huge thing for people who are carers of anyone, that it's a bit like living with a condition in itself, because you tend to hold a lot in because you have more challenges throughout the day trying to be that caregiver. And it is finding those networks. It's important to note that there's a care organization in pretty much every area that offer some level of support, and it's always good to make links with them as soon as you can, even if you barely consider yourself a carer, just to know what helps out there in case anything gets bad for you.
Definitely. When you were talking, then I was thinking about there's a theme here, and I think it's sort of emotional literacy.
Yeah.
This idea of, okay, I'm worrying about this and it's making me feel like this. I think being able to express that, even just to write it down, is a great first step. Because if you go through the day and you recognize the thoughts that might be making you anxious, you might have 10 or 20 of them throughout the day, but if you can't name them and label them, that's going to be an impact. And then why those thoughts are a problem. And so many kind of relationship things usually stem from, okay, I'm worried about this because it might make me look like I'm not worthy, or maybe it will mean that I'm not good enough. And that's kind of the same, everybody has their area where at the core of it is that kind of worry or belief. Also, I think then being able to express this stuff between a carer and the person that they're caring for, like when you talk about, is that going to impact intimacy? The content of what's in someone's head is a really attractive thing. And the better that you can be at expressing these things, and maybe coming at it from, okay, here's me and you versus the problem, rather than me versus you, surely that's got to be helpful. Those are my anecdotal thoughts.
I think that's really good. I read an article earlier about someone who started journaling to kind of make sense of their thoughts so they could speak to their partner about them more clearly. And I think it's quite in theory, quite a simple step, and I think it can really help. That's actually something that's come up on social media, the wider topic quite a lot as well, is finding more support for partners of people with MS. We've seen quite a lot of people calling for more of that to be done. Are there any specific services? Obviously, Flora, you mentioned for people who are carers, but perhaps just people who are friends or family of people with MS that are kind of available, or is it something that maybe we could offer more as MS charities?
I mean, I think, most MS organizations would welcome anyone who is, affected by MS, and support them in the same way that they would support someone who is living with MS themselves. So I think it's important for people who are affected by it but not living with it, to remember that they can use any of the charities, and that's just as important. If they have a question about MS, if they're struggling with an issue, that's fine to reach out. So I think that's definitely that there is some support there, but there's always more we can do, and there's always more we can think about, tailoring services. And I think services that kind of offer emotional support and connection against isolation are really key, to helping people live better with any condition.
Certainly. I think, yeah, again, on our platform, we see a lot of people that are kind of like, my son has MS or my partner has MS. I want to ask these questions, but I'm worried about phrasing it in a way that might offend them. And then obviously the good thing is that we've got like over 40,000 people living with MS who are like, they won't all reply, that would be overwhelming, but a lot of them do. And so you get a very wide perspective on, okay, well, this is how I'd like to hear it, and maybe don't phrase it this way, but phrase it this way. And I think having someone in a similar position that you're not so worried about offending is really useful. And
I think it's the same on the MS Trust Facebook group, that there's quite a lot of people joining that are carers or children or sometimes even like colleagues. People are like, just or somebody I know. It's quite interesting to see. And I always find, like, when you see those people joining, you always feel like, that's a good egg, that's a good person, because they want to learn more. They want to take stuff in and sort of learn about MS and also see other people's experience. So I think, it's a really fantastic approach to just want to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, that is something 100%, that I get all these people calling in being like, yeah, my partner really doesn't understand it. And I'm like, have they ever, taken the time to just read about it on one web page? Those kind of things, I think, if you tell your friend you've got MS and they go away and they actually kind of look into it and understand it, I think that's such a caring, nurturing thing to do that can really, be actually taking away some of that work that people with MS have to do to explain themselves constantly about why this is that. Actually having that person that goes away and does their own research is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think, a friend of mine, she recently got diagnosed with bowel cancer, and she's been very sort of open about her journey, and she's been posting sort of on Facebook quite regularly about what's going on, but then also done things like, if you want to read more about stages of cancer, here's a link. And I feel like she's not saying you need to know this, you need to do, but if you want to. And I find that it's been really helpful as well for me, because then I can sort of, okay, well, because I feel like I can talk to her and she wants to, and I just want to be there for her. I don't know anything about bowel cancer, but I'm learning, and I feel like that's all we can do as friends of someone with a condition.
Yeah, I think it is. And then I think, if you tell someone I've been diagnosed with MS, they're like, oh yes, they've got this bad thing that might mean something bad might happen at some time. And they kind of just hold it in their mind as that kind of potentially negative condition. Whereas if they actually looked into it and understood it, it becomes more of sort of a fluid, kind of variable individual condition. It becomes less of someone's imagination and more real and less scary for everyone.
So just to finish off, does everyone want to share one piece of advice that they'd give for people with MS when it comes to managing relationships, whether that's sort of friendships, romantic connections, or family bonds?
I think, don't forget who you are, that you are not MS. You have MS, but you are not MS. And it doesn't need to be something that necessarily is going to mess up a relationship. If it does, then maybe think about if that relationship was meant to be in the first place, whatever that be, if it's romantic or with friends or family and things like that. But yeah, you are you, and look at what you need and what you can give other people, and sort of don't over analyze absolutely everything and put it down to MS, because it can get in the way, but it doesn't always need to.
I would say mine is, and this can be cringe, but I'm going to say it anyway, have a diverse self-esteem portfolio. And what I mean by that is don't give too much weight to any one aspect of like your experience or your personality. So MS is one part of who you are, but you might really like running as well. You might be a great partner or a great sibling or a great parent. And there are so many things that make up who we are. So if you need help in one area, don't focus on that, and don't forget about all the other areas that make you who you are. MS is just one part. You get to decide how big that part is. But yeah, there are so many things that make you you. So don't give too much weight to each one, I guess.
Oh yeah, I would say, don't assume as much as possible. Try and communicate. That's my one tip for relationships. We think a lot of what happens in relationships takes place in our head, and it's important to notice when we're doing that, and kind of try and actually test it in real life and discuss it with that person if something's on your mind, rather than kind of letting it fester.
Now, if this was a commercial podcast, here's what there would usually be an ad break. But as we're a charity, we don't do that. So instead, we'd like to tell you about some of the resources we have about relationships and MS.
As well as a section on our website about family and relationships, we also have a selection of books and publications that can help. So there's some things like talking to your children about MS, someone you know may have MS, so that's a really good guide for friends and family to learn a bit more about the condition. There's also the excellent Kids Guide, which breaks down what multiple sclerosis is and how it may affect a parent. Just go to our website and look under the resources tab.
I was just going to say that the children's guide is actually an excellent one to just kind of lay around the house. And, if you feel like a partner or a parent might not understand your MS, they might pick it up, because it might be geared towards children, but I find it's excellent towards anyone, really.
Lots of like bright colours that are quite eye-catching.
Yeah, that's it. I've had lots of people that sort of said, this is brilliant for my husband. So that was an interesting way of doing it. This is the first time we've sort of had all our guests in one go. And it was also strange because I was kind of a guest. But I found it really interesting, though. I think it's dating and relationships and friendships and things like that. It's a minefield. And I think you're so right about the fact that we always hear about these things like mythical love and blah, blah, blah in books and films and things. But we never really talked about how we should be with people and how we should treat other people and what's expected of us in friendship, or, and people to try to kind of live up to these expectations from romance novels and things like that. It just doesn't work, does it? So I feel it was nice to hear Billy and Flora talk about these things.
Yeah, and of course it was nice to have Billy join us from Shift MS as well, because we're not the only MS charity, and it's really nice to hear about some of the work that some of the other charities in our sort of area are doing, because at the end of the day we're all kind of committed to trying to help people with MS and fight in the same fight. So I think that's really nice, and hopefully we can work together with some of the other MS charities a bit more in the future.
Yeah, it's almost, because obviously this podcast is supposed to come out, is it a day after is it International or National Friendship Day?
International Friendship Day, yeah, I think that's coming this weekend. Yeah.
So I think the fact that we have friends with other MS charities, it felt like a nice way of doing it. And I feel like Shift MS, they do a really good thing about trying to connect different people with MSs together and chat. And I feel like this whole buddy system was a great idea. Because I guess I kind of had it put in place without social media back in those days. Like I found someone, like I said, on in a forum who became more or less my MS mentor, and I feel like it was invaluable having that kind of connection. So I feel like if you want to know more about their buddy system, have a little look in the show notes, and we'll put all the links there. And if you're from Shift and you come and fall in upon us, hello, we're the MS Trust, and we have got lots of good information for you if you want to know. And we also have an information, I was going to call them a hotline. We don't call them a hotline, do we?
Not quite a Drake reference there, no.
You can always call and ask any questions, or email if you prefer to do that. So yeah, let's be all friends together.
Yeah.
Cheesy, but it's true.
Yes. So as always, remember that the MS Trust is here for you if you've got any questions related to multiple sclerosis or life with the condition. One of the ways you can get in touch is by contacting the MS Trust's inquiry service and helpline. They're available 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, except from UK bank holidays. Their number is 0800 032 3839, or you can email ask@mstrust.org.uk.
And our next podcast is going to be about disease-modifying drugs and MS, where we're hoping to dive into the world of MS treatments and answer some of the questions on the subject that you may have. We've already had loads on social media, so I think it's going to be an interesting podcast. But if you have anything to say on DMDs, that might be a question, or just tell us, your own experience. We would love to hear from you. And your comment might be featured on the next episode, and you can remain completely anonymous. You can drop us a voice note or message on WhatsApp on 07458303326. Alternatively, you can email my story at mstrust.org.uk.
Yeah, we're interested in hearing lots of different experiences from people with MS. So you don't necessarily have to be on a DMD at the moment. You may have tried one and it didn't work for you, or you may have made the decision as well to not give one a go. So we're more than happy to hear those experiences too. We should just point out, though, that our WhatsApp messages aren't monitored by the inquiry team or the helpline, as we mentioned before. So do give them a call if you've got a specific question that actually does need answering. The number for them, once again, is 0800 032 3839, or email again at ask@mstrust.org.uk.
And we do get loads of questions about DMD, so if you have any, don't just get in touch. You can find the MS Trust on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find this podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And of course, now also on YouTube, if you want to look at what everybody in the podcast is looking at like. And get in touch with us, and like and subscribe, tell other people about the podcast, share it, be friends. We would also like to say a big thank you to another friend of ours, Anne Chapman, who's done the music to this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who's been involved.